All right. One, two, three, and we are live. All right. My name is Carlos Tercios, and welcome to the Carlos Tercios Uncensored Show. I'll be your host today, and today we're going to have Victor Avila, who's our guest speaker for today's podcast episode. And Victor has a background when it comes to border security. He served our country, and this episode is going to be talking about the border issues, what needs to be done, what has been happening in the country, and of course, Victor's expertise and advice and what needs to be done. So, with all that being said, I'd like to introduce Victor Avila, and of course, he's going to give us a brief introduction of what he's done, his background, and of course, what he's doing today.
Thank you, Carlos. Great to be with you and everyone that's joining us on this live. As you guys know, the border crisis is probably the number one issue affecting us. I'm a retired supervisory special agent with Homeland Security investigations under ICE. I've worked at every level of government, at the county, at state, federal, and international as a diplomat in Mexico and Europe. I understand borders. I'm born and raised in El Paso, Texas. I'm what they call a border rat. So I understand dealing with this issue, but especially the cross-border daily lives that occurs and how unique a border town is. But at this point, the entire country now and every state has become a border state. And that's not just me saying it. It's people that are being affected in North Carolina and Tennessee and Chicago and all these places, Denver, you name the city. And people have been affected not only by illegal immigration, which we're going to talk about a lot today, but by a lot of other issues like fentanyl, crime, many other issues that are directly related to the Biden-Harris open border system. It doesn't have to be like this. I want people to understand this is not normal. I had never seen anything like this. As a matter of fact, my colleagues have never, no one has ever seen anything like this because nothing like this had ever happened. No one had deliberately ignored our own constitution and our own laws, laws that were legally passed and legislatively passed have been completely ignored. Rulings by the Supreme Court completely ignored. And that's what we're seeing the last 3.5 years is lawlessness at our southern border. And what does lawlessness mean? It means a threat to our public safety and our national security. And so here we are in unprecedented times. What do we do? Well, there are solutions, and some of these solutions are very easy. Some are going to be tougher and going to take longer, but the solutions do exist. It's just that the will of those solutions are not going to be put forth by this administration. It is up to us, we the people, to continue to put pressure on them, and obviously to try to change this administration to protect ourselves. We want to protect our sovereignty just like the other countries protect themselves. You're going to hear me say a lot about, being America first and protecting America. I'm not shy about it. Other countries are not. They put their country first. So I want to put ours first because now it's gotten out of control with the amount of violence and the amount of death that surrounds us. And that for me is probably the biggest that I can. It's hard for me to tolerate, and it's very upsetting that we have people from all over the world, over 170 countries, coming in here and committing crimes. Not everyone, I'm the first one to tell you, not everyone that comes here commits crimes, but one is too many. One rape is too many. One murder is too many. One burglary, one robbery is one too many. We have enough, right? Don't we have enough crime in our own country to
Yeah.
deal with? And that's out of control. And the policing system and our criminal justice systems need a lot of attention, and in some cases, overhauling of them. So let's discuss this. Whatever you want to start off with, Carlos. There's so many.
Yeah.
I want people to know there's so many factions, so many avenues to this border system that is that we'll cover as many as we can.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I appreciate that. To start it off, I just want to ask you, how many years did you serve under Homeland Security? And of course, how was that experience? Because I don't think a lot of people in the country know what it is to actually be an agent, to actually defend the country at the border, how that experience is, what you learn, and of course, what you're applying from what you learn in today, and of course, the advice for the country.
Oh my goodness. I worked as a special agent for 12 years. Before that, I worked for the United States courts. And so I understand the federal criminal justice system on the other side, the court system as well. So I have 20 years of federal service. As an agent, though, it's very different. I learned, everything from what you see on TV, doing the search warrants, arrest warrants, kicking down doors. I did a lot of that. My subject matter expertise is human trafficking investigations and victim identification. The latter part of my career was focused on just rescuing women and children, mostly women and children, a lot of boys and men as well, believe it or not, from sexual exploitation conditions and forced labor. My career took me overseas, took me first to Mexico, first on the other side of El Paso in Ciudad Juarez in 2008, when that city was the most dangerous city in the world. There were
Yep.
about 350 homicides a month there at that time. And then, of course, Mexico is just crazy with the cartels. A lot of people know me because my partner and I were ambushed by a cartel, and my partner was killed next to me in the line of duty. I'm here by the grace of God, suffering 3 gunshot wounds. So I understand the evil, and I've seen it in its eyes of the cartels. And we're going to talk about the cartels as well, because they play a major, major role in what's
Yep.
happening at the border. And so that experience that I have when it comes to border security. So what people understand, Homeland Security Investigations is the largest investigative arm of the Department of Homeland Security. It's the biggest now, next to the FBI, the biggest federal law enforcement agency. And we get to investigate. Our jurisdiction is everything that has nexus or touches our border. If it comes to that border, if it touches our border, we have the jurisdiction. It's not just goods and people. We're talking about commercial fraud. We're talking about counterfeit goods. We're talking about pharmaceuticals. We're talking about components that leave our country to Iran so they could finish building their nuclear war. So a lot of child exploitation, a lot of things that encompasses Homeland Security. And I was proud to be a part of that agency to combat this. And that's one of the things, Carlos, that we're not seeing is the enforcement, right? We were having the enforcement, we're fighting and fighting every single day, arresting bad people. And it's very disheartening for me to go down to the border and see this happening. And there's no enforcement. As a matter of fact, they've taken the authority away from our Border Patrol agents, not allowing them to be patrol agents and not allowing them to patrol the border that's in their own title, in their own name, and making them, transporters of illegals and all this other stuff that's going on. And it's very, very disheartening to see that. But that's how this administration is blatantly. I mean, don't. There's no doubt about it. This is deliberate. It's on purpose, and it's causing a lot of damage to our country.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, it is destroying the country. It's hurting a lot of Americans. And you did talk about drugs at the border. Was during your time as an agent, was fentanyl something that you heard? Was it something that was growing? Because now fentanyl is a major problem in the country. I know here in Tarrant County, the sheriff is talking about how he's tackling fentanyl, how that's a huge problem, especially within the youth,
Yeah.
and it's killing a lot of Americans, and it's coming through Mexico and China. So I'm just curious if you heard about that during your time as an agent, and of course, as it's grown today.
Yeah, great question. I remember that nobody knew what fentanyl was. I didn't know what fentanyl was, and I first started hearing about it in 2010 when I was in Mexico. That's when I first started about fentanyl, and of course we're talking about synthetic fentanyl,
Yeah.
because for people to know, fentanyl is a real drug. It's a real narcotic on a schedule, and it's used for real medical purposes for cancer patients, I understand, and also used for other type of medical uses. But what's being used and produced by the cartels through the help of China with its chemicals and precursors is a synthetic version of fentanyl, which is highly, highly addictive and highly potent. And so therefore, they press it into these pills, and these press pills are in 100 super labs in Mexico. Not only are they continuing to push the methamphetamine, by the way, let's not forget that meth, cocaine, and the other drugs are
Yep.
still coming into the U.S. and I know fentanyl gets the bigger attention as it should.
Yeah.
But these meth labs in Mexico continue to produce it. These pill mills continue to produce millions of pills that look exactly like real pharmaceutical pills that you and I might take as a prescription, whether it's Percocet, Xanax, Oxycontin, Adderall.
Wow.
That's why our youth and college students use a lot of.
Yeah.
These pills have hit the market, the black market, and are readily available, especially in our campuses. And according to the DEA, 7 out of 10 of these pills contain a deadly dose of fentanyl. That's why we have suffered over 100,000 deaths per year, not in total. In the last 3 years, at least
Wow.
100,000 people have died. Americans, that's more than any war combined. But
Yeah.
it's hard for me to understand that why our government wouldn't react to that, because they didn't kill them with bullets or bombs. But it's this silent pill killer that is really killing our youth. And yes, 90+% of it comes through Mexico through the help of the cartels, which then distribute it everywhere in our country. And those cartels are present here full time in Dallas Fort Worth area and everywhere in our
Hmm.
country. And I think people sometimes don't want to believe that, but they're amongst us.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, I know some elected officials and even some law enforcement officials, they say that every county is a border county, just like how you said every state is a border state, because the whole country is affected by it. And talking about, how the cartels in Mexico, how they send these deadly drugs that kill Americans, there has been talk about how the Chinese play a role into that. So I'm just curious if you saw any information or you heard anything about, China, of course, playing a role in the killing of Americans and, of course, sending these drugs and helping with the cartels. Did you hear anything or you know?
Absolutely, it's absolutely well proven that China, just so you know, has had a very, very big presence in Mexico for a long time, decades. It's not like China just got into Mexico the last 5, 10 years. No, they've
Yeah,
been in Mexico and operating in Mexico for a long time. And now with the chemicals that they bring in and smuggle into Mexico, it's so corrupt in Mexico. I never hear of a big, precursors, chemicals, and liquid chemicals being seized at the port in Veracruz, for example, in
yeah,
Mexico. You never hear that. They always make
nope,
it in. And the cartels they have chemists, they have lab technicians that make these chemicals into the powder format or liquid format and press it into these pills and M30s and the ones that I talk about. And here they come. Some of them even look like Skittles. They look like colored candy. And the cartels now just get them, smuggle them into the U.S. at the port of entry, in between the port of entry. And here's the difference with pills and like a brick of cocaine. A brick of cocaine is very bulky. So is marijuana. And I investigated and seized a lot of this in my career. You have to dig holes and do all this stuff to put them in vehicles and any way you can imagine. If you can imagine a way to smuggle drugs, the cartel has already done it. And so with pills, it makes it a lot easier because pills can be manipulated in very different shapes and forms.
yeah,
So they're coming in, imagine it, and it's coming that way. And we have seized a record number of fentanyl the last 2 fiscal years at our ports of entry and our border. And
yeah,
a lot of people think, well, that's a great thing. We're combating the fentanyl and we're winning. Let me tell you, no, we're not. And this is the part that a lot of people don't understand. And it takes me back when I was a narcotics agent, because when the seizures go up, and the seizures are a lot, and you were taking people down in seizures and seizures and seizures, that only means that it's pouring in. It's not the other way around. When the seizures are down, that's actually good, because that means that not a lot of it is coming in. And the left
yeah,
will sell it to you like, well, look at all these seizures. None of it is coming in. No, no, no. The higher the amount of seizures, the more the drugs are coming in. So I just read right before we jumped on, there was a big seizure again of liquid form of fentanyl at our ports of entry, of methamphetamine, I'm sorry. And so we're grabbing so much because the cartels have flooded the mainly Arizona Arizona is probably ground zero for fentanyl trafficking, where they bring most of the fentanyl to there. It used to be cocaine. They switched over to fentanyl and meth, and they bring it in. And you see, if you look at, imagine the map of the United States with Mexico, is this distribution from California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, El Paso, all the way to Brownsville. And each cartel has their territories or plazas. And here comes all the drugs all throughout our country and 40 to 50 countries abroad, not just the US.
Yeah, I mean it's horrible what they're doing, and especially in Arizona, how I mean the border states, of course, are getting the most damage out of it, and of course, and it spreads through to the other states. During your time, as an agent, and of course, what you saw, which cartel was the most greatest threat and biggest hurdle? I know the other every other cartel, of course, is a threat, but which cartel did you hear the most? Did you see the most activity? And of course, what's the most dangerous out of all of them?
That's a great question because they're all bad. They're all evil. The
Yeah,
Zetas cartel, who was a responsible cartel for killing my partner and shooting me, they're the ones that were the game changer. They're the ones that were the tripwire for the cartels. The cartels used to have, they even had agreements amongst themselves, like MOUs, if you will, memorandums of understanding. They each had their location and their plazas and their territories, and they had to kill people sometimes because that's part of their business. But when the Zetas came along, it changed everything because the Zetas then brought the violence, and they brought the medieval violence of chopping off heads, taking hearts from people's chests while they're still alive, burning people alive. Horrible,
wow.
horrible videos, right? And there's videos, and I've seen them all, and I don't want to see them anymore. But they changed the game for intimidation purposes of other cartels. So the other cartels had to do the same. Not that they were not evil, they were already bad, but now they
Yeah,
said, well, they chopped off our head of our guy. Well, now we're going to chop off the head of that guy, and we're going to dismember the body and displace it around the town. So that violence has spread, and that type of violence, very, very violent, brutal acts, has spread amongst all of them. But now the Cartel Jalisco New Generation, the Sinaloa Cartel, the Gulf Cartel, and now the Zetas, they're called CDN, Cartel del Noreste, operate in that's their modus operandi, is violence, intimidation, terrorism. That's why I
yeah,
think they
that
should be
they are.
designated as foreign terrorist organizations, because I think they're terrorists. As a matter of fact, they've killed more Americans than any terrorist organization out there. ISIS
Yep,
hasn't killed 300,000 Americans, but these cartels have, and there's no one going after them. There's no enforcement on the Mexican side. You see the battles every day between the military and the police, and there's nothing really being gained there by that. But then you look at the US side, and just in the last almost 4 years, there's no one pushing back really. And so the
yep,
cartels right now are
yep.
operating with impunity. And and by the way, they were drug cartels back then. We used to call them DTOs, drug trafficking organizations, but not any longer, because they then took over the humans, the human smuggling, the human trafficking, and they realized, hey, these humans pay a lot of money too. So guess what? Now we're going to take over that. And they take over, they're involved in the lime business, petroleum business, all these other endeavors, not just the drugs, but an illicit, all these illicit type of businesses and money laundering and all that. But probably right now, the two that we have to really be concerned about is the Sinaloa cartel and the Cartel Jalisco New Generation.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about how they do human trafficking, how they've killed hundreds of thousands of Americans, how they have essentially taken over the Mexican government, and they have complete control over that government. They are a terrorist organization. All of them are terrorist organizations. And I'm just curious why, I'm just curious about why the American government has not designated them as terrorists. And to be honest, there has been chatter. There's been a lot of
Oh
political
yeah.
talk about whether we should send in American personnel inside Mexico. Because I have to be honest. I mean, I have family in Mexico. It is the worst place to go. I mean, if you go inside, a lot of violence, a lot of kidnappings. It is not a safe place. I mean, you can go to the resorts, sure, but outside of that, good luck. Pray to God. But it is. I mean, it's a giant terrorist state. It's the
It
giant.
really is, Carlos, and, and
Yeah.
and you're not wrong. You're calling it. That's exactly what it is. But to answer your question, why hasn't the United States acted on it? And President Trump almost designated him. And I remember when he had that conversation, and my colleagues and I, we got all excited because he was finally going to designate him, and Mexico begged him not to, because obviously
Uh,
the designation. Well, imagine Mexico having
yeah.
5 terrorist organizations in their country. There'd be a sponsor of
Yeah.
terrorism, right? And so it would hurt Mexico. But at this point, we have to think, hurt Mexico. You're killing us over here. You're
Yes.
literally killing our children. And then let's talk about. And I know I want to talk about this later for sure. The illegal alien crime of people coming into
Yeah.
Mexico, killing our and raping our women and our youth,
Yeah.
literally killing them. And so there's too many of those cases around here. I'm getting messages almost every single day now of a U.S. citizen being victimized at the hands of an illegal alien, and that just enrages me because those are
Yeah.
supposed to be preventable crimes. But anyway, getting back to your question, now I think President Trump gets back in there, they're going to be designated. They're going to be designated. The designation, by the way, doesn't come from the president. It comes from the State Department. So that's why you're never going to see it happen under the Biden administration and
Oh
Harris.
yeah.
And so they're never going to go through the State Department. But officially, it goes to the State Department. And it does happen, it's going to bring a lot of resources, DOD resources. It's going to allow us different jurisdictions and different authorities. One of those is to go and seize all their money and all their assets,
Yes.
bank accounts, boats,
Yes.
houses, everything here and in Mexico, wherever they have it. We take it, and that's where we hurt the cartels. We take their money. Another thing that it does is, obviously they're a terrorist organization. You can't be associating with them. So if you're a
Yeah.
gang, an 18th Street gang, or a gang in North Texas working with a Sinaloa cartel, you can't be working with a terrorist organization. We get to go pick you up too.
Yep.
So it's a lot. Another thing that you mentioned, it also provides the military intervention, which I'm for, but I want to leave that at the end. I want to be able to give it the
Yeah.
opportunity to do everything else, but I'm all for it. If Mexico is not going to cooperate, we eventually will have to go in there and take these guys out, because they have created a chaos and the influence that these cartels have. And I want to tell you, these are not gangs. These are highly sophisticated networks. Think of them as Amazon. Amazon is a multi-billion-dollar company with distribution centers all over the world. Well, the same thing with the cartels. They're multi-billion dollars industries with distribution all over the world. The only difference is that their operation involves extortion, kidnapping, murder, and
Yeah.
trafficking of drugs and human beings. And so why do we allow that to happen? I
Mhm.
think we're at the point now where we need to hit them hard and eradicate them, to not only save
Yep.
our country, you would be saving the country of Mexico and many others. They have been terrorized
Yes.
for years over there. They're afraid. They are afraid to go out to their normal town. I have family over there as well. It's not normal anymore. It's not the
Nope.
same. They're afraid for their lives. And people ask me all the time, can I go to Mexico? I'm going to Cancun. I'm going. Yeah, you're going to be okay in the resort areas, but you know why? Because the cartels want the resort areas to be safe. It's the cartel that controls everything. It's not the police that's going to be protecting you. It's
Nope.
the cartel that wants it safe, because they also make millions of dollars off of the tourism that go there for the uses of drugs.
Yeah. No. I mean, yeah. They need to be held accountable, and I hope that Trump does all of that. Labels them as a terrorist organization, does everything that we can, because not only are they doing human trafficking, drug trafficking, they are hurting and killing Americans. They're also responsible, like you said, on the human illegal alien transportation. And we've seen tens of millions of illegal aliens just come inside the United States, millions of whom, and I know Tom Homan was talking about it a couple events ago,
Mhm.
how a couple million, we have no clue who the heck they are. All we know is that they just cross, because of radar detection, but we have no clue who they are, where they're at, what their intentions are. I mean, we have millions of violent people that work for the cartels. Are here to harm Americans. I mean, it's a mess what's happening at the border. And I know Trump has talked about, doing mass deportations to do that.
Yeah.
Um, what's your opinion about the mass deportations? Do you have any advice on
Oh
that,
yeah.
or any other things that we should be doing as well when it comes to resolving this?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of solutions. Some, like I said, will be easy. Some will take longer. When it comes to the mass deportations, I'm ready to join Tom Homan and he's my personal friend to go do it because it can be done. Now it's a
Yeah.
cumbersome task, but it doesn't mean that just because it's a lot of work and it's a logistical nightmare per se, doesn't mean we can't do it. We will do it. We have the resources right now to start doing it, and it has to be done. It's one of those things that it doesn't matter really how you feel anymore about illegal or legal immigration. We have to hold people accountable for being here
Yes.
illegally in the country because of the people that you talked about. We have so many bad people that have come in. Not
Yep.
everybody's committing crimes, but there's so many that are. Tren de Aragua and others that we'll
Yep.
talk about, Venezuelans. We're talking about those right now, but you have to. And so I think that there will be a good plan. I want to be part of this plan to execute this plan once President Trump gets in there to provide. There's different categories of illegals, right? And you cannot lump them all as one. They're not. You have the killer, gang member, cartel, whatever, the
Yep.
worst of the worst, and then you have a person that came here that to work and doesn't commit any crimes. Yes, they're here illegally. You cannot put them in the same category. And so I want to make sure. So, but what you do with this mass deportation is you have to go after the worst of the worst first.
Yes.
But at the same time, there's going to be a plan here that I would love to be able to have part of and advise President Trump or have a role into having the people that can come into this country legally have the opportunity to say, listen, you need to leave the country right now, get all your stuff in order, all your business in order. You're going to have to leave the country, but then you'll have the opportunity, if you do it right, to come back and apply to come
Yeah.
into this country the correct way. Um, and kind of self-deport yourself and give you that opportunity to leave. And I think the people, a lot of them will take that opportunity to do it the right way. Because there's a lot, Carlos, that came, a lot of millions of people that came here that didn't
Hmm.
have to come. They came and I talked to them. They were a barbershop owner, electricians, attorneys, doctors, people that had businesses. They sold their houses, they sold their businesses, and they said, "Hey, let's go to the U.S. because the U.S. is open. Let's go." Well, those have to go back. There's no need. And there's another category, the overstays, that a lot of people don't talk about. People that came in on a visa and then overstayed their visa.
Yes.
You're here illegally the same way. So just because
Yep.
you didn't come through the river doesn't mean that you're excluded from it. No, you will have to remove yourself as well. If you're not,
Yes.
we're going to do it for you. So then you give them this advisement, you give out this messages, you put it out, and then the enforcement begins. And I don't buy this notion. A lot of people tell me, Victor, oh, you're not going to be able to find them. Believe me, I'll go to sheriff. I'll go to Sheriff Wayburn. I'll go to a local PD, and the
Yeah.
local police officer will drive me directly to where the illegals are at.
Yes.
I know where to go in these areas to where most of them are at. So we will, and we will need the help of the locals and the states. And this is where the challenge comes because Carlos, these sanctuary cities and sanctuary states are
Yeah.
not going to want to cooperate with federal authorities, not just ICE, federal authorities to begin with. And so there has to be consequences. As a matter of fact, President Trump said today that he would defund them. He would defund these sanctuary
Yes.
cities and cut them from federal funding. That'll get their attention. The same thing with the foreign governments. You have to cut them off from any foreign aid that we are giving them because we're not getting anything in return. I worked in Mexico under the Merida Initiative, $1.4 billion, and we built the police departments. We gave them all this equipment. We trained them. And what did that get us? Nothing. I'll tell you what it got us. More human trafficking, more fentanyl, more meth, more violence, more death. That's what it got us. That's not a good
Jeez.
formula. That's not a good return on investment. So
Nope.
that's what's going to happen. We're going to work locally with these, work very closely with these local jurisdictions and state. For example, the state of Texas, I know they would jump on and give us
Yeah.
their troopers to help us. So we're going to start doing it. And maybe all these facilities that we have held for, that we have built around the border for illegals, we start housing them there, grouping them, and start flying them back to their country. And I think that when you do that, the message now, not the message from the government, not the message from Trump, forget that. The message from the own illegal is going to call his family and his friends, just like they do right now. Right now, they call them and say, hey, I made it. Come over. So here they come. Well, now the call is going to be don't. The message on their phone is going to be don't come over because you're not going to be allowed in. As a matter of fact, the other part of mass deportation is prosecution of some of these individuals. Some of these individuals that are going to be caught that are here legally are very dangerous. You're going to be prosecuted, man. You're going to go to jail. And that's what, I mean, that's the law. That's Title 8. That's what I used to do.
Mm-hmm.
I used to put people in jail for that violation. So now you're going to go to jail. So that call is going to be like, no, you're going to prison. Don't come. And so the message is sent around the world that this is now over. This is, you're not going to come. You're not going to get free resources. The magnet that exists today of the free money, healthcare, education
Yeah.
is no longer existent. So we're not going to give you anything. So don't come. As a matter of fact, help your family. Do not get in a dangerous situation and have your wife and your little girl raped on their way over here, or drown in the river, or cooked to death in the desert, and all these bad things that happen to them. So we're also going to save them. We also will protect
Yes.
the illegals themselves, believe it or not. So securing the border is a good thing. It actually helps everybody, and it will actually end up saving lives.
Yeah, no, I mean, I 100% agree because you're seeing a lot of people die just crossing here is a dangerous thing. And the fact that you have a lot of people on the left saying that, oh, we need to accept them and, you're a bigot, you're a racist. How dare you criticize these immigrants? No, like border security actually saves lives. You want to make sure that people don't come in. Not only that, but you'll prevent human trafficking, drug
Right.
trafficking. You're going to
Right.
prevent a lot of deaths, and you're just going to save lives, at the end of the day. And so it's just ludicrous how you have the Biden administration and Democrats not support border security. And I guess the other question I have is, you know Biden and Kamala are not dumb people. I mean, they got into the White House. To get into the White House, that means you know how know you know how to have some skills. You know how to play politics. You have to have a brain, a functioning brain. And I'm just so baffled how some of these Democrats, despite all the evidence, despite what law enforcement tells them, the reports from Homeland Security, despite all of what's happened, they enable the illegal immigration, they enable the open borders, and I'm just curious about your perspective, like, why is that? Are they compromised? Do they get money from the cartels, from
I
China?
That's
I
a
mean,
great question. I get this question a lot. Like, why would you do this? Why are you
yeah,
hurting us on purpose? This is deliberate. The policies, they're policies, not laws, that you are implementing right now are hurting us, are killing us,
yeah,
are addicting us, are doing all these bad economic impact, by the way, of the illegals is a huge
yes,
problem in the healthcare system, in the school systems. You're hurting the small
yeah,
towns and the counties and the cities. Not all towns and cities are New York and Chicago. Most of them are very small around the country. And why would you do that? And I think it's way beyond. I think it's ideology. I really believe it's ideology. It's not a democratic what's the constitutionalist country that we are. We're not a democracy, right? And they think that we are. So they think that in numbers it would help them, whether it's with votes. No,
yeah,
whether it's with representation, because they want to count them in the census. And if you count more
yes,
people, it's millions of people, it will change the number of representatives. And they think, well, we'll have
yep,
more representatives at the House and we'll control the government forever. That's what I think they see. And I think it's ideology. I think it's socialism slash communism. I really
yes,
believe that's what I think the ultimate in the big picture, that's exactly what it is. And how do you do that? One of the ways that you do that is by infiltrating the country with millions of people. There's other ways that they're doing it as well, that the economic impacts and the others that we could talk about. But wow, my goodness, this is uh, they they hate the country, or they want to take over the country. I think they want to be the elitist. I think they want everybody to rule. They want to rule these people. They want to rule
Yeah.
us. They want to control us. They don't want us. It's we the people that we own this country. We're the one that's supposed to be telling them what to do, and they answer to us, not the
Yes.
other way around. And if you notice, in the last several years, it feels like we're always under the scope, and under they're looking at us, investigating us. We're supposed to be investigating them.
Yes.
Our government is supposed to be transparent, right? That's the way it was built to
Hmm.
be. We're supposed to be telling them and supposed to see everything that's happening, but they have really undone that process. And so I think the bigger picture is ideology. I think that by bringing people from countries with the same ideology, like Venezuela, Cuba, Mexico, they have a very different view of life. Uh, and in the United States, I was born and raised here. My parents came from Mexico. They came here legally, but they did one thing: they assimilated to the country.
Yes.
They
Yes.
wanted to be Americans, Carlos. They became Americans. You know how they became Americans, and why they wanted to be Americans, and why they first of all, they followed the laws. They followed the Constitution of the United States. They assimilated to it. They didn't fight it. They wanted to be Americans. They encouraged that on us, and speaking the language, and being bilingual and all that good stuff,
Hmm.
and hard work, and not being a public charge to the government. My parents didn't take
Yeah.
anything from the government. They worked hard to provide for my sisters and I. That's the American dream. I'm the product of it. And so I want that. I'm all for that. I want people to do that and experience what this country is able to give them. I wish that was the case, but it's not. A lot of the people that are coming now are coming, they don't want to be Americans. They just
No.
want to be in the country and bring that socialism and that communism here with them. And it's very dangerous. We're seeing it with the Venezuelans, where they are trained very differently than, at least the way I was trained from my family, about police, about authority, about respecting your elders, and all that good stuff. That doesn't exist over there. Over there is, you hate the police and you kill them. That's how they grew up. When you get pulled over in Mexico, it's not the same way when you get pulled over here in the United States. So even police interaction is different, right?
Yep.
Well, that from Haiti, from Venezuela, from China, from Africa, from Asia, from all these Eastern Europe, and all the world that the people are coming in. Well, all of a sudden, they're in places like Ohio, they're in Kentucky, they're in Denver, Colorado, they're in Fort Worth and Dallas, and in Houston, and all of a sudden, you can't absorb that, right? It's very hard for these cities to absorb them, and then you start having the problems, because when that can't happen, it's a clash, and when that clash happens, something has to give, and unfortunately, usually the first thing to go is public safety.
Yeah. No. I mean, Yeah. No. You're seeing it in Ohio. You're seeing it in Colorado. A lot of these illegals, I'd say almost all of them, they don't want to assimilate in the country. They don't care about the country, and they're being brought in, of course, like you said, to help with an agenda from the Biden administration. That's, of course, power, influence, changing the country from within. And it's the most disgusting thing anyone could ever do. It's the most evil thing I think anyone could ever do, especially if you're elected to serve Americans. We expect you to serve Americans. We expect you to put Americans first, not to bring in the whole world, and to do the great replacement, which is what they're doing.
I
They
think
want
so.
to replace us in healthcare, in schooling. I mean, you had Democrat senators talk about how we should make some of these illegals and put them in the military,
There
and
are
they have
already
no
police
willingness.
officers in LA, and
Yeah.
they're illegal.
I mean, they are replacing Americans, and it's this very scary thing that you have tens of millions just inside, and they're terrorizing people in Ohio, they're terrorizing people in Colorado, they're terrorizing people across the country, and and Americans are dying as a result. And I know my wife, she works in the medical industry, and she talks about how a good chunk of the patients are illegal aliens. They're getting tens of thousands of dollars every single year to get the medical services for free. They don't have to pay a dime. And you have American citizens that are homeless, veterans that are homeless, and they have to go through a tedious process just to get the same medical services
Yeah.
like these illegal aliens, which are not even citizens. So it's
It's
we're
very frustrating,
becoming.
and you
Yeah,
know the good part is that the people are waking up and they're
yeah,
saying, and then the people, I mean Hispanics, the black community, they're saying,
yeah,
wait a minute, whoa, what's going on right here? I'm over here struggling to pay my rent, man,
yes,
and that medical bill that I'm paying 100. I saw it with my parents. We didn't have insurance growing up in El Paso, and then my parents needed the hospital. They're right there paying $150 a month for 10 years. But the illegals come over, have babies, broken arms, and all their care
yeah,
taken care of. And you know how we ended up paying it? With our property taxes. Our property taxes would go up. And the burden was always placed on the Americans to pay for everybody else. And I think people now have had enough of that,
yeah,
especially with the economy the way it is right now.
yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, Americans, they can't afford, to pay gas. The rent is very high, taxes high, grocery. I mean, everything is just high because of Biden inflation. And, you got to put America first. And so we just got to make sure that, I mean, everyone who's watching, go knock some doors for Trump, go help out Trump, go help out Vance. We need him in the White House. We need Republicans to win the Senate. And just do the great mass deportation and recorded history. And I know people in the media and the left are gonna scream and say, "Oh, you're cruel. You don't have a heart." And they're gonna post a picture. And my advice would be, ignore it. It is just propaganda. They're trying to make you feel bad. At the end of the day, this is to put the country first. This is to save lives.
Yes.
I mean, that's the irony that the left says that they support mass migration. Oh, you're big at first wanting border security, but people die crossing the border. People are smuggled. People are, into human trafficking, drug smuggling, the worst crimes in human history that I can ever imagine happen at the border because it's open, it's not secured. And when Trump wins, we got to make sure that we ignore the media, we ignore the left, we do what we need to do because not only is it right, it's morally right as well. And you're going to save those families that are crossing
We
as
do.
well. And,
One of the things
but
I say a lot is if they were able to make the journey from their home country of wherever they came from, Africa, China, through the Darien Gap, and make it through, yes, if you were able to come here, then you're able to go back.
yes,
Now, we're going to take them back. We are going to give them a plane ticket and we're going to put them on a plane and we're going to take them back. We're even going to make
yeah,
that easier for them. But they're all going to be, all their information is going to be taken. We're going to DNA all of them. We're going to be taking all their biometrics of every single person that is removed from this country to see, first of all, to give you the opportunity to say, when you go back and you want to reapply, then we know who you are, right? That's the number one thing we want to know. You're not a criminal, you're not a terrorist. Okay, let's start that process. Because if you're not going to want to give your DNA, not going to want to give your biometrics, then that's going to tell us something that you're not
yeah,
going to go on back. And if you've ever been arrested, if you're an illegal alien, and you have been arrested in this country for whatever thing, for DUI, for theft, for drunk, whatever, you're not going to come back. I'm going to tell you right, you're not going to come back. We need to have a moratorium for a little bit and say, listen, we need to fix this. We need time
yes,
to fix this. Give us a little bit of
yes,
time. Let's clean it up, and then because right now the legal people that are coming here legally are waiting 12, 14 years. That's not right either. There are good people that we want to come to the U.S. that do the right thing, that do all the
yeah,
medical, that do all the background, they pay all the fines, and they're just there waiting, seeing
yeah,
millions of people come in, and they're like, "Wait a minute, what? I'm going to be a productive member of society in the United States. I actually do want to be an American." And so we need to flip the script on that.
yeah. No, no, I fully agree. My last question before we wrap this up is, what would be your advice to any ordinary Americans just watching this, because I know there's so much negativity and so much chaos as a result of our border being open, and the illegal aliens, of course, all across the country just hurting Americans. What would be your advice, to Americans, to voters, in general?
Two things. One, I would say, oh, go vote. Well, no, no. You really need to get up for your couch and go vote. But the difference is not only are you going to vote that you haven't voted, you're going to go vote, but you're going to take somebody with you. We cannot afford this. You take your drinking buddy, your golf buddy, your
Yep.
whatever gym buddy. You're going to take someone, a family member or someone with you. Do not go alone, and you're going to go vote. We need the numbers to go out there. I
Yeah.
mean, there was less than 10% turnout on the primaries, Carlos. I mean, it is embarrassing. There's a lot of these people are registered, by the way. They're already registered. So go out and vote. Second, if you really want to make a difference, and it's very simple, I'm not going to give you homework because I'm going to tell you what you can do, but something very simple is you need to become aware. Just become a little aware of what's going on. We are Americans. We're all busy. We all have bills to pay. We have soccer practice. We have all this stuff going on in our lives. You need to stop. And I think it's your civic duty as an American to now pause and pay a little bit of attention to what the heck is going on politically. Guess where? In your local town. Because you forget about the White House and whatever. I'm talking about your local street and who represents you. Do you know who represents you? Do you know the name of your representative? Do you have
Yeah.
their phone number? They work for you. So you could have
Hmm.
a cup of coffee and tell them about the pothole that they haven't fixed and the light post and something about the school. You can go to a city council meeting and a county commissioners meeting and a school board meeting. That's how you make the difference. Right here, locally, you make that choice to go and be a little bit involved. I'm not telling you you have to run for no. Just become aware, because once you become aware and get a little bit involved just by being aware, you'd be surprised how you start making different decisions that are going to benefit you and your family.
Yeah. Yeah, no, no, I fully agree. Get involved and, of course, make a difference. And let's put America first and save this country. So, Victor Avila, I appreciate you being here and, of course, talking about border security. And we'll stay in touch. But that's the wrap up.
Thank you for everything, Carlos, that you do. I appreciate it. We'll see you again.
All right. Well, thank you, Victor.
Take care.